So Governor Stitt, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you taking time out of, I know, busy day to come talk with me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
All right, so this conversation is really mainly about education, all about education, not only at the college level, but really at the high school level, middle, kindergarten, all the way down there. I really want to start big picture and then work our way down into more minute details. So in 2011, as we know that Oklahoma was ranked 17th in education. Now we're ranked next to last. What do you think has been the biggest factor in that stark decline in that educational ranking?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know exactly which rankings you're talking about there, but big picture, I think we've kind of gotten our eye off the ball as far as competition. We've gotten our eye off the ball as far as promoting kids that maybe aren't ready to go to the next level. So we've started instituting third grade reading initiatives. You have to be able to read at grade level, or we're just passing kids to fail. And also, we've injected competition into our education system. We believe that with more school choice, more options, that's good for parents, and that creates competitions. It makes everybody better when they're having to compete for those students. So re-looking at kind of how we think about education, I think, is important. And we're seeing tremendous gains since I've been in office and I've got some of these policies done. We're number 6 in the country right now in outcomes for charter schools. We're number 1 in the country. Listen to this, number 1 in the country in the smallest gap between white students and students of color in our charter school system. We're number 1 in the country. I just got that information. So we're excited about that. And also, I've put more money in education in my 5 years as governor than they did for 25 years before I got to this seat. So it's basically because Oklahoma's elected a businessman governor and somebody that's been fiscally disciplined, our economy's booming, and I'm investing that in education, which is so important because we all want the best education for our kids. So that's something I'm super focused on.
You mentioned money. Have you spent more money on education than the past 20 years of administrations before you?
25 years.
25 years. Ryan Walters recently tweeted out a graph, I don't know if you've seen it, and plotted the amount of money given to education and the level of, let's say, educational attainment in Oklahoma. And basically the quote was, we just can't throw money at schools and expect for that level of education to increase along with it. We have to do other stuff. Do you agree with that? And what other stuff, I know you talk about competition, what other stuff, maybe culture, maybe raising the, getting rid of poverty, lessen the poverty level in Oklahoma. What else can be done to help not only charter schools, but public schools in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I do agree with him on it. You can see that when you look at the funding the United States does in general, per pupil. We're by far the leader in the world on funding per pupil, but we're not the leader in the world on outcomes. So we do have to raise the standard. And it does come back to family engagement. And that's why you've seen my month of November was dedicated at Family Month. And we need moms in their kids' lives, but we also need dads in the kids' lives. We need that. But we also, I believe competition is a big thing. So I'll give you an example. If you have a failing school district, before I became governor, if you were a poor family, single parent, and you didn't have the resources to go to a private school, and you're stuck in a zip code with heavy gang violence and drugs and high school dropouts, what options did that parent have? I'm telling you, those parents call me and they say, Governor, you've got to help me. I need to get my son or daughter out of this situation. Here's my point, and I'll debate anybody about this. School choice should not be just for the rich. It should be for everybody. And now it is. I passed the law that said that now that single parent that doesn't have the resources that maybe you or I have or other people have or benefited from, now she has a refundable tax credit to take her son or daughter, if there's a better option, and she says, hey, I think there's a better option for my son or daughter, now she can take it to another school. That's going to create more opportunities. We also have charter schools. The other example I love to give, Santa Fe South in South Oklahoma City. It's a predominantly Hispanic. 95% of the kids that go there are Hispanic. A charter school, you don't have to go to the charter school. You choose to go to the charter school. Did you know Santa Fe South has 4,600 kids going there with hundreds on the waiting list. Those parents could go to their local Oklahoma City public school, but they know that the outcomes are better over here. Why? That's a good thing. And then now Oklahoma City is having to say, hey, I better up my game a little bit. And so that's competition. And I think that is also going to be a huge differentiator for our state. Jeb Bush did this back in Florida 20 years ago, and they've seen their NAEP scores really increase. That's what I want for our kids in our education system.
You're sort of introducing that capitalistic principle into the education system here.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you have any worries about the rural population or rural schools, how they maybe not have the number of charter schools that Oklahoma City has, that Norman has, that we're going to see big gains? And let's say the charter schools does introduce better test scores and better knowledge for those students. Do you think maybe those rural schools back towards Lawton, the Chattanoogas, the Frederick, they're going to be left behind while those more city schools really flourish?
I mean, I hope not, but yes, with bigger populations and with a bigger school system, you can offer more classes. So that's why I'm requiring every rural school to offer AP classes. With technology, we can zoom in AP classes now. That's why you can go to career techs. That's why we have online colleges. You can get an associate's degree. So you may have to search it out a little bit, but you certainly can. But that's also the misnomer that they're not in any different situation than they are without school choice. If there's only one option in Frederick, then what's the big deal? And we've put more money into Frederick Public School than ever before, and we put another 20% in last year. So this other pot of money is a separate pot of money called this refundable tax credit that doesn't have anything to do with the pot of money for our funding formula. And so if a student does leave the public schools and goes somewhere else, their per pupil funding actually goes up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Because it's divided by a fewer number of kids. So you can't argue with the fact that we're going to fund public schools and we're going to give them everything they need. Now, I will tell you this, the Fredericks of the world, Frederick Public Schools, are probably a little more responsive to their community. It's smaller. You know who's on your school board. They're not going to be teaching kids things that the public doesn't appreciate there, because they're going to be way more responsive to the citizens of Frederick than you are maybe in a huge school district. So there's some certain advantages there, maybe a few disadvantages on the number of AP classes, but we're trying to help that through technology.
Do you think consolidation is on the table in terms of those smaller schools? I want to say forcing them, but making it so we don't have these small rural schools that are sort of close to each other, get a bigger school and have more students, so maybe more classes are available to them and more opportunities. Do you think that is on the table at all?
I think we all absolutely should always be asking ourselves those questions, like, is there a better opportunity if two schools that are five minutes apart should come together with one superintendent, with one physics class and chemistry class, and how can we work on that? But I do believe in a decentralized method. I don't believe Washington, D.C. needs to tell rural Oklahoma how to educate their kids. The workforce is different in Maryland than it is in Western Oklahoma.
Of course.
So they're going to be more responsive to the needs. So I believe that those local communities should be more responsive there. But yeah, we should always have those conversations at the table, and it's a zero-sum game at the end of the day. So how do we use those resources? Do I need 2 buildings? Do I need 2 superintendents? Do I need 2 principals? Could we consolidate that? It's an honest conversation to have. And with competition now and with open transfer, those communities can have those conversations.
Going back to that graph, if you look at the graph around COVID era, we see a large decline in educational attainment. I don't think that should be a surprise just because the COVID took kids out of classrooms, maybe not in Oklahoma to the extent as other states, let's say California, but how far do you think COVID really set back the state in terms of education, and what can be done to bring us back up to par than where we should be?
Yeah, well, I think Ryan Walters is doing a good job of working on some of those summer programs, some of the kids that have had some test scores drops. How do we how do we take some of these programs to help kids get back to grade level? And Oklahoma, to your point, fared very well. I refused to shut our state down. I was one of the few governors. I refused to do a mask mandate statewide. Not that I'm against masks, but I just believe in personal responsibility. If you want to wear a mask, wear one. But we weren't going to require that. And so there was only a couple schools that closed down, Tulsa specifically. It was really your big school districts, Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Tulsa closed for 355 days. But most of our rural schools were open the entire time. So we haven't seen the drop that they saw in other schools. But unfortunately, Tulsa Public Schools, the kids that can least afford it, they got left behind. And the other thing I share with people is I would have been a total hypocrite if I wouldn't have been pushing for schools to be open. My kids were in school the whole time. And that's what I couldn't understand about certain governors that are friends on the other side of the aisle. Their kids were in school in private schools, but yet they were saying it wasn't safe to be open in public schools. It's just so hypocritical to me. What's good for somebody else but not good for me, that's ridiculous. And we believe in freedoms in America. And I want to make sure that there's equal opportunity for every young person in our state.
So let's go towards the speech or hearing that you gave just before this, the DEI, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means for Oklahoma public schools and what really caused you to want to do this? Kind of like we talked about before we started rolling, we talked about Florida, Texas doing it. Did you see good things happening from those programs in those states, going away from that? So what kind of caused you to want to do this? Yeah,
well, first off, as the CEO of the state and the governor of the state, and I'm responsible and have to try to make sure that we use our funds correctly. These aren't the government's dollars, these are the people's dollars. These are taxpayers' dollars. So when I see taxpayer dollars going to the University of Oklahoma or going to Oklahoma State University and hiring 50 DEI officers and paying them six-figure salaries with taxpayer dollars, I kind of have to question, is that good use of funds? So just from a fiscal standpoint, is that the best use of funds, right? So that's one thing. Second thing, the Supreme Court just made a ruling in a case against Harvard University that was discriminated against Asian kids. And the Supreme Court said, listen, you cannot discriminate against someone for their race, their sex, their ethnicity, period, end of story. And so that's also in our state's constitution. So I'm just reminding our universities that you can't admit kids in your universities based on race, okay? We believe in a merit-based system, right? So if there's a standard for someone to, if there's a standard that someone has to hit this ACT score and this requirement to get in, then that needs to be the standard, regardless of your race, okay? Now, however, I also said in that executive order, let's help kids that are first-generation college students. So let's set aside maybe a lower ACT score for first-generation college students. But you could be a first-generation college student if you're African-American, if you're Asian, Hispanic, or white. Why do you base it on race, right? Let's base it on low income or underserved or underprivileged. It should not be based on race. That's all I'm saying. And guess what? I bet you 99% of Oklahomans agree with me on it. There's going to be a few that are going to race bait it, but people are so tired of talking about what divides us in America, and they want to talk about we're all God's children, we're all created equal, but let's go compete, let's have an equal opportunity for everybody.
You mentioned poverty, and talk about meritocracy. 5 minutes? All right. Talking about meritocracy, are you okay with colleges kind of providing more funds for students that come from poverty, that may be first generation, but really focus on the poverty level of the student, the income of the parents? I
think so, yeah. In Oklahoma, if we put something aside and we say, hey, guess what? We want to educate and give people this opportunity if they come from, and that's like college essays. That should be part of the admission process, that I want to give someone a helping hand. All we're saying is it's not based on race. It's based on who needs a helping hand. Okay, that's all we're saying. And then DEI tries to divide us. They try to say that there's an oppressor, an oppressed class, and obviously, if I'm underprivileged, I've obviously been oppressed. It's not true. We're not gonna make some person feel responsible for something that happened 100 years ago. And we also are going to try to teach our children that there's no such thing as equal outcomes. There's equal opportunities, and life is not fair, and you're going to have to work your butt off, and you're going to have to go get an education. You're going to have to say yes, sir, no, sir to your professors and your bosses, and you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to persevere. And nobody owes you anything. You're going to have to go work hard, and there's pathways for you to achieve whatever you want out of life. That's what the American dream is, and it's not based on race. It's based on how hard you're going to work.
All right, so we got about 5 minutes. I got 2 questions left for you. How do you feel about PragerU? That was kind of a big deal. Of course, those on the left kind of raised up, said they didn't like it. Those on the right really praised it. My really question to you is, would you rather just see a PragerU being displayed in the classroom, whether that is public schools and let's say colleges, universities, or do you favor more of a balanced approach? Because some people argue, let's say PragerU is a little bit more on the right in terms of how they portray history or maybe the theories. The one video I saw was the Southern Realignment Theory. They're more on the right, kind of the Republican feelings on that. Are you okay with displaying the PragerU side, but also maybe the other side as well to give, hey, this is what these people are saying both on the left and the right, and let the students decide for themselves?
You know, I think I generally fall on just freedom of speech, and let's teach everything, and let's have some honest debates. We can disagree, we can have debates about it, but we shouldn't be trying to slant history or education one way or the other. So let's teach civics, let's teach about our founding fathers, let's teach about capitalism, let's teach about all the different forms of government around the world and different cultures, and what are the good and the bad of all those things. And it should be a democracy where our kids are free to learn and ask questions and debate. We teach them how to think, not what to think. So all that is healthy and good. And so that's not my industry as far as the specifics of the curriculum that they're teaching. I know Ryan Walters is doing that, and PragerU, and there's other curriculums out there. But I think we all can agree, when we saw some of the pornography and saw some of the stuff in some of our elementary schools, that has no business in our elementary schools. And we know the difference there between just freedom of speech versus some graphic material that underage kids shouldn't be exposed to.
All right. So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this next question. Little deviation from education, the educational topic we've been talking about, but you're going to be term limited out in 2026. Is this going to be the end of the road for Kevin Stitt in terms of a political career, or do you have maybe in the back of your mind thinking, you know what, maybe that White House wouldn't be too bad. I think I did good for Oklahoma. Maybe I can do good for the rest of America as well. Bring the same principles I brought to Oklahoma and bring it to the rest of the nation. Do you think that is an option for you?
You know, if the Lord brings it, asks me to do it, and I'm a man of faith, so if the opportunity presents itself and it's something I felt like that I could help my country, then yeah, I'd never say never. But right now, I love being governor, and I'm a father of 6 kids. So my wife and I have been married for 25 years, and so she certainly was going to be ready for me to be home. Well, I mean, I say that, maybe she will be ready for me to. Once I'm home for about a month, she'll be ready for me to get back out. But no, I mean, I'm a business guy at heart. I'm planning on going back to the business world after I finish serving my state. But who knows what happens? I know all the guys running for president, and I love my country. So if they wanted me to do something or asked me to do something, it'd be hard to tell them no. But I'm in Oklahoma, and I want to serve Oklahoma right now, and we'll see what happens in the future.
That sounds perfect.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.